$900 billion of mega projects have been identified in that respect. Then we also know, critical, and given that we are at the IDC today, the Public Investment Fund, which is one of the world's single largest sovereign wealth funds, so this is the Saudi fund, has reserves of around $800 billion, not insignificant in these conversations. So what are our top 5 imports that we import what are Saudi's top 5 imports? So in other words, what are those products that Saudi imports the most? The top 5 list is motor automotive, petroleum oil, bituminous oils, RTC products, mineral commodities, gold, and gold with platinum are particularly big, and then pharmaceuticals finds its way on number 5 on the list. Okay, what do they export mainly right now, and particularly to our country? So crude petroleum, we spoke about, refined oils, ethylene and propylene, polymers, certain chemicals, fertilizers quite big, and for those of you not chemically orientated, ROH stands for alcohol, so acetic alcohol is the other one. And then of course, they also happen to be the world's second largest gas exporter out of interest, given some of the global dynamics around energy security, an important point as well. Okay, let's just try very briefly to analyze some of the trade patterns. So this has been updated incidentally in your press release. So at time of putting this presentation together, we didn't have the 2023 stats. We now have them. They're in the press release, and you can pick up on those. Now we should remember that 2020 and 2021 saw a decline because of COVID naturally. So these numbers are a bit distorted, and we should rather reference the ones in the press release, because that compares 2022 to 2023, and you will see that there has been a growth in SA exports, and we can cover that in questions if you like, question time. And similarly, if you look at the 23 versus 22 data for imports, there's been a marginal growth of around 3.9%, I think it was, and heavily weighted, of course, to mineral fuels and mineral oils, where the trade is top heavy. So as you would expect, South Africa's single biggest imported item, and this is through the HS code system that we use in the relevant chapters, oil is our biggest import into the country, followed by capital equipment. So it's no surprise that we run quite a sizable trade imbalance or deficit with Saudi, because we import so much oil from them, and that deficit is around 67 billion rand. And of course, we never see deficits in the negative. We always see deficits as an opportunity, a growth opportunity, because we can look to sell some of our industrial products, our manufactured goods, some of our agri and food products. Matthew Karan is here from Karan Meat. We'll talk a little about the opening up of the meat product market to Saudi. We'll do a bit of that later. So deficits in the coldest of daylight look problematic, but they also present an opportunity. And I think we're discussing more the opportunities here rather than the negatives. Okay, colleagues, just very briefly, how was this business council incepted? And I should say immediately that the council is not made up of government. Its only qualification is that you have to be from the private sector, a business person. And the council existed previously, but it was rather moribund and mothballed. So following the state visit to the kingdom, where President Ramaphosa, at the invitation of the Crown Prince, visited Saudi in October 2022. Many of us as business people accompanied that delegation, and the state visit was a stimulus to reforming the council and reigniting it. And we've set about in the last 14 months or so to formalize the council. I'm pleased to say that we have recently received advice from our counterparts that they have now appointed a chairman, who's actually a co-chairman, and a co-deputy chairman. The co-deputy chairman is sitting on my right, Dr. Hisham Amoudi. Unfortunately, the chairman is in Johannesburg, the co-chairman, who is Mr. Naif, and I'll put the names up in a moment. He is busy preparing for a launch of a business here tomorrow in South Africa, so he couldn't accompany us, but Dr. Hisham is more than an adequate and appropriate substitute. I'm very happy to have him here. So the council has its genesis in that state visit. It has a purpose to boost bilateral ties, economic ties. We focus strictly on economic matters. We're clear that we're not politicians or delve into the world of politics, as unavoidable as that is sometimes. We also get expression of our purpose from the Joint Economic Commission. So you will know when there was previously agreement signed between the two countries. One of the agreements and understandings was the establishment of a Joint Economic Commission, which is co-chaired by the two ministers of trade, industry and competition in our case. So it's Minister Patel and his counterpart. Okay, we also look at this cooperation, as I said earlier, more broadly than just the two countries. We understand how strategic the two countries are in the region. So the Gulf, the Middle East, SADC, SSA, and more broadly Africa are important conversations when we have these meetings. And of course, there's a matter also of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is looking for our Saudi colleagues, is looking to aggregate the volumes in the African market. Africa as a standalone is a $3.5 trillion economy. It has the youngest population. So there are what we view as significant future opportunities around the Africa Continental Free Trade Anchor. And it's something that we have started speaking to our colleagues, counterparts, Saudi side, and it's something that has found immediate interest and expression. We need to build on these discussions. Of course, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it is going to be an important future topic that we will engage in. Very quickly, what are the objectives of the Council? Naturally, there are three objectives. The first is we remain an interlocutor between business and government. We are not government, but we certainly have access to government when it comes to business and economic issues. So we serve as a direct exchange between our two respective business communities and also individual businesses. Our aim is to promote agreements between our two countries to increase bilateral economic trade with all the benefits that comes along with enhanced economic ties. This involves cooperation at a trade, investment, skills and training, healthcare, know-how and IT level. Then lastly, we are conscious and had a very robust discussion yesterday around what we would call disenablers or bottlenecks to either investing or trading between the two countries, and we will actively engage and already started a bucket list which will pass on to our Department of Trade, and similarly my colleague will do the same on his side, all with an aim of making business more seamless between the two countries. There have been some successes, incidentally, in that area already, and we haven't been going for long, and I will flag some of those successes. Okay, what do the investment patterns look like to date, and what progress has been achieved? There have been sizable investments from the Saudi side into South Africa, and this certainly doesn't capture all of them because, as I mentioned, Mr. Naif, the chairman himself, is seized with opening a logistics company tomorrow in Johannesburg. $6 billion worth of investment, and conversely, South African investments into the kingdom over the last 8 years or so have equated to $150 billion. So although at a trade level we run a deficit, at an investment level we run a surplus as South Africa. Okay, let me give you a glimpse, a thumbnail really, of some of the progress to date. I know media doesn't like reporting on mundane stuff, so you've always got to make it a bit interesting. So hopefully this is a bit more of where the future interest will lie. I spent the first and the majority part of the presentation just orientating you with the thought process, the logic, the strategy behind the inception of this relationship between our two countries. How we've set up the council. I'll comment a little on the governance in a moment or two, but this is some of the progress that's been achieved since the state visit in October 2022. So firstly, agri and food is an important sector. I made a comment earlier that Saudi is the largest meat market in the Middle East.
Two hats. The one is I'm a director at Karan Beef, and the second hat is I head up the food and retail pillar of the South African Business Council. Our aim on the Business Council, specifically the food and retail, is to promote South African foods and agricultural products in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. As we know, South Africa's got phenomenally high quality products, and we feel that increasing the exports specifically to the Kingdom will help South Africa. It'll help us employ more people, and it's good for the country all around. So that's the aim of what our pillar in the Business Council is about. Regarding the meat side, as Stavros mentioned, South Africa was banned 20 years ago in the Kingdom. The initial ban was because of an animal disease issue, foot and mouth, in the early 2000s, and years went by. Bilaterally, we were trying to sort it out, but nothing happened until the state visit with President Ramaphosa and Minister Patel at the end of 2022. Correct. And I truly believe if it wasn't for that state visit, and if it wasn't for the face-to-face discussions, we would never have been able to get the Saudis to open us up. Memorandum of agreement was signed. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia committed to getting their people to South Africa as soon as possible to come and do a full audit. This happened. People from the SFDA, the Saudi Food and Drug Administration, did come out. They did do very, very in-depth and comprehensive audits on our beef and lamb facilities that are export approved. So obviously you had to be export approved, you had to meet the Halaal standard, which a lot of our facilities do, and we've been audited. So far, 5 companies have been listed as have been passed. There were a few non-conformances with some of the other plants, which is busy getting sorted out. and hopefully majority of those that applied will be open and will be able to trade into Saudi for our beef and lamb products. Once again, this is very important for us as a country, as we are able to grow our businesses, employ more people, bring currency into the country, etc., etc. All round, it's just good. And we hope to do this with all agricultural products across the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thanks very much. I remember the Vice Minister of Investment of Saudi telling me what an avid cricket fan he is. I wish you were out here for the SA20. So these are some of the opportunities, and I think the way one looks at these opportunities, you look at where are the cultural, where are the business fit, and you take them forward. So just to plant a seed at the back, that we are looking potentially where there's a strong case to be made at other opportunities as well. Let me end off this. Here's my final slide. It's a busy slide, so I'm going to sort of uncomplicate it. What is the way forward? We want to consolidate on the existing sectors, and we want to diversify the interest in those particular sectors. So for example, in health, we know that Saudi is very strong in building its own vaccine capability. Like ourselves, South Africa, it was deeply damaged and hurt because they could also not access vaccines. So they've decided, like ourselves, they're going to start building vaccine capability. So there are these type of projects, I think, that you can look to diversify. There's a training of doctors program potentially across the two countries that was discussed with great detail yesterday. So there are these projects that we can diversify within the realms of the 5 sectors. A very important element to any council is buying and investment missions. Now, Saudi has a very big retail sector. There was on this visit a colleague from the retail sector, and together with DTRC and InvestSA, I think we will work on looking to bring a buying mission to South Africa from Saudi to buy many of the wonderful products that we make in our country. We'll continue to address bottlenecks. We'll continue to increase connectivity where we can. The direct flight, the tourism visa, now that's resolved. But my Saudi colleagues tell me there's still issues around business visas and work permits potentially. So we need to cover those. Investor and trade conferences dovetail with buying missions. We need to look to focus on catalytic projects. There have to an extent been some already in energy, and there is a contribution in number of megawatts from some of these energy projects.
Seeing the opportunity here in South Africa, our coach, Aden, he's busy, like I told you, inauguration tomorrow for his office, the logistics. So if you can believe in South Africa, trust me, we won't be opening businesses here.